Metal Gear Solid ranked by our chat. Chris, Lena, a few other people sent in their votes, their rankings. I did mine. We put them all together inside Metal Gear, and Otacon came up with the results. The song you're listening to now is not the name of a winner or a loser, simply one that participated, and one that I thought, for me, said Metal Gear, which is interesting because Metal Gear Solid's been around since 1998 and still keeps going, so it can mean different things to different people, just like Final Fantasy. This will be a little different though. Final Fantasy was 16 choices. This is down to just 5. We're going to rank Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Peace Walker. And in last place, only received 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. All of those votes were last place votes, except for one, is this game here that I shall show you.
Nothing. Sunlight!
Wait for it.
Metal Gear.
And keep waiting.
Mr. Kojima.
So this is, what do you call it? Peace Walker. Peace Walker, in this ranking, obviously a victim of its platform. Not a lot of people played it, and it being the only one on a portable that we ranked. I wish I played this one, especially when it came out, seeing that everything I really loved about Metal Gear Solid 5 was born in this game. Kojima realized that a typical Metal Gear Solid experience is not going to work on a portable system. You can't be whipping out your portable to play a quick session and have a really long cutscene. You don't have the resources to have the huge cinematic moments. That works fine if you're on a couch playing for a couple hours a night, but portable needs something different. So he broke up the gameplay into little tiny missions. The cutscenes were, I think some of the smartest things they did was do it in that sort of comic book style, where you can still be really stylish, and you can use the beautiful, amazing art. That wonderful art. Who does that art? Amano? It's just gorgeous and such an emblem of the series. And you can still tell a great story. I didn't play it. Not a lot of people here played it. It was just the green bean machine. So did anyone have anything to say about this one? The boss fights were the highlights, says Rudy. Amano's a Final Fantasy dude. Okay, well, whoever did this one. Because I have nothing really much to say about it other than I wish I would have played it. And I think it was pretty interesting that he was able to do such a great job with it on the portable version. There's no checkpoints mid-missions. That's not good for portable. Story's pretty meh. Yoji Shinkawa, that's who it is. Yeah, it was a very intelligent game for what it was. And that's what we have to say about Peace Walker. You didn't play, watch somebody else. Had a lot of elements we later seen 5. Particularly stealing soldiers. Yeah, stealing soldiers, stealing sort of like the equipment, the Fulton balloons, recruiting them, working on your base. The game is, the length of a Metal Gear Solid game, but you can play dozens and dozens of hours extra, doing more missions. It was as impressive as impressed as I was with Metal Gear Solid 5. It's really amazing to go back in Peace Walker and see that they did all of this on a little tiny system. It was more of an action game with no stealth. That's not good. Anyways, that is Peace Walker, our last place finish. In second to last place, I wonder if you can guess what it is. Metal Gear Solid 5. A tough game to rate. This one got a last place vote. It got a third place vote and a couple fourth place votes. An incomplete work resulting from Konami's controversial and bizarre behavior towards Kojima, allegedly removing him from the project and pressuring its completion before it was finished. It's obvious while playing the second act of this game that the story and the game were not properly finished. Missions are... You have to go back and redo them to progress the story. There's a lot of voiceover. And while the ending is there, it's pretty frustrating and insulting to the game's legacy and the fans' appreciation of it. I did enjoy the more hands-off approach to the storytelling. I loved that the gameplay was compartmentalized into these small pieces similar to what they did with Breath of the Wild. And there is a lot of downtime in Metal Gear Solid when you're staking out a base and you're watching people, you're watching guard patterns, you're sneaking, you're maybe waiting for that perfect moment to strike. That's when I want to put on a bunch of story missions and listen to those while I'm sneaking around or while I'm traveling from spot to spot or working on something. So I think that the game was pretty genius in the way that it integrated everything and had all that awesome base building stuff. You were constantly working towards something. I had probably the most fun and the most fun hours put into Metal Gear Solid 5. And it was frustrating, that halfway point, because I did like the ending. The ending was a pretty smart idea. And for the way that Kojima was able to dump this into, like, find one more nook in his little story where he can put something not only just that has to be there because of the story that he's written himself into, but he still allowed himself that incredible twist at the end. It was great. It was a product of the time with Konami, but I really loved the game. If your favorite part of Metal Gear Solid is in Metal Gear Solid 1 planning a stealthy assault on Mother Base, Metal Gear Solid 5 is going to give you a lot of those spread out all over the maps to do at your leisure. But if your favorite parts of Metal Gear Solid are the Kojima mind boinks, you're not going to find a lot of that here. Sorry, Felix. Rudy wishes they would have worked the open worlds a little better. Yeah, it felt like that was a bit sort of empty, but it worked for me. I still felt that there's a lot of creative mission design they had as well, like the tank mission where they just say these tanks are going to go from this point A to point B. You need to figure out how to take them out. It's up to you. I loved the experimentation, the sandboxness of it. This and Breath of the Wild are my two favorite open world games, and it's not even close. It would be nice to finally get this game completed, but and the gameplay's fantastic, and the little moments like when you get seen, you have that split second in slow motion to make up for it. So it's less punishing. It's more sort of cinematic. It's more badass. It was a fantastic game, but on our list here, this is where it's going to be. I didn't try Ground Zero. I should. All right. Are you ready for... Which place are we at here? If we've got 1, 2, 3. We got our top 4 now, babies. So top 4 of the real serious ones. And these are the first 4 Metal Gear Solids. So. Oh, wait a second. I think I have this organized incorrectly. Okay, let's see. Okay. There we go. See if you can guess it. I had to wait for that classical guitar to poke its way through. Metal Gear Solid 4. Metal Gear Solid 1 set the stage 2 found new ground, 3 had fun of the prequel, and 4 tried to wrap up every single piece of Metal Gear Solid up at the same time. There's a little something for every Metal Gear Solid fan here. I think if you have played 1, 2, and 3, this is a great one to also play. I think as a standalone, it's where it starts struggling. I think you notice where there's a lack of an editor. The cutscenes start going longer. The set pieces are bigger than ever, but everything is kind of bigger than ever. The cutscenes are way more frequent. The pacing can be sort of tough. If you don't play one act at a time, you end up having to watch a really long pre-mission sequence, and then you do the mission, and then you have to watch a really long post-mission, and then another one back to back. And there's not really anything going on in these scenes, because it's mostly just a bunch of old people sitting on that big airship, and they're just talking to each other on couches. It kind of reminds me of the Phantom Pain in the prequels, where everybody's just sitting around. You need action. You can't just say it's cinematic because you're not playing anything. You need to have some kind of idea of like movement or something. Something needs to be going on. Sure, not action, but I think something needs to happen. And when it's mostly people just constantly explaining things, I think that's where Metal Gear Solid 4 ends up losing itself. But on the other hand, there's still the motorcycle chase, the sepia-toned trailing mission, parts of the Civil War, all the stuff at the end, crawling through the microwave corridor, the split screen action and fights, sort of like the final battles, the many endings. There's like 3 or 4 emotional endings to this game. It was more experimental. I mean, 2 and 4 took a lot of chances. 1 and 3 played it safe. I think the toughest thing for that with Kojima is that he said 2 was going to be his last one, and they made him come back. So he did something different for 3. He went back in time and told a different story. Then they wanted him to make another one. And you could tell he just was done with it a long time ago, and he really tried to end all of it. So what are you guys saying here? One thing you didn't like about 4 is that it suffered from something many games from its generation suffered from. Every game time from that period had weird, ugly brown sepia filter. Yeah, it was more like a realistic time. It was the Gears of War. It was like everything was kind of dark and gritty and trying to look high end. It was the HD graphics time. I mean, the visuals in this game, like Final Fantasy 13 on the PS3, 2 generations ago of console hardware, are still impressive, and at the time were mind-blowing. I mean, when the game starts, you're in this whole new world where you're watching TV, this like Hideo TV, and you can change a channel. It's like you're watching sort of a Requiem for a Dream post-consumerism dystopia. It took a lot of chances. It hit a lot of highs, but I think it had the most misses for me. Rudy said 70% of his cutscenes, if they added more in the chapter 2, you would have liked it more. The microwave scene was so simple yet so profound. Absolutely. That worked really, really well. And I kind of wish that's where it would have ended. I mean, that's the most memorable part of the game. And feels like the emotional highlight for me. It seems like everything else after that is more of like just kind of like a prologue. Lena, I loved how many cutscenes and how frequent they were. It really felt like the ending of the series deserved. It definitely, it was the most Metal Gear Solid. And it was the way Kojima was going to try to end his involvement with the series, although he didn't. All right, we're down to our top 3, voted by you and me. Do you recognize that? That was actually a Konami intro, but one that the only time it appeared in a Metal Gear Solid game was in the first one. Metal Gear Solid 1. This got a first place from somebody, a second place from someone else, a third place, a fourth place, and a fifth place. So people were sort of all over the map on this one. 97 and 98 were pretty great for gamers and even better for PlayStation, capturing never-before-seen levels of hype with 97's Final Fantasy VII and 98's Metal Gear Solid. Gamers had never seen a game so polished, cinematic, and creative. The opening cinematography, the tastefully done credits, the dramatic monologues, Psycho Mantis reading your memory card and moving your controller, the DualShock beating with the heartbeats of a man dying from a heart attack. And of course, the newfangled 3D stealth gameplay. Tenchu did release earlier that year, allowing gamers to sneak around as a ninja, assassinating people, but the mechanics were totally basic. Metal Gear Solid had wall hugging, wall knocking, wall exploding, hiding in or under trucks. It felt like there was an innovative mechanic introduced with every new scene. Breathing cigarette smoke on lasers, using ketchup to fake your own death, footprints being spotted in the snow, footsteps being heard in the puddles. The innovation is legendary, but the limitations of the time showed. The final portion involved a lot of tedious backtracking and card temperature management. The game loses steam momentarily as you realize the incredibly detailed base is actually a lot smaller than it first felt, and now a bit lonely as you deal with just gun cameras instead of living, breathing guards. Metal Gear Solid 1 is a singular piece of work. As Chris says, it somehow manages to convince the player that the fantastical events and campy characters are to be taken seriously. When I think of this game, I think of this title screen, I think of this music, I think of how serious it is, and then when I read what Chris had said, I thought, right, there was a shaman named Vulcan Raven. There was a woman who spoke to wolves. There was a Psycho Mantis. The voiceover work blew away everything, absolutely everything at the time, and was recorded, I think, in a garage. And they had to contend with motorcycle sounds that caused them to do a lot of retakes, and sometimes, if you're really careful, you can hear them in the game. I've never heard them, but a lot of people, wow, enough people have. The game's incredibly cohesive. I still have a lot of fun going back to it. It's every breath of the game works together to create something beautiful. What drops it down for me is the pacing, where it felt like they just weren't able to make any new areas, and they were like two different sections where you need to backtrack. And that's where the novelty of what you're doing moving forward starts to wear off a little bit. But, I never even thought of it as a dub. Green Bean Crit Machine. Fantastic game. You think Metal Gear Solid 1 Snake is your favorite David Hayter performance? He was a gravelly, rugged Snake. Not too much was comical. Everything was so fresh and new at the time. Coda conversations. Because you were this one singular soldier in a very dark place, it was very comforting to have those Coda calls. I used to call them all the time, and little Easter eggs would pop up all the time. It was a fantastic game. You didn't mind the backtracking yourself? The first backtrack to get the sniper rifle I didn't mind. When it was a bunch of second floor basement. Bring the key card to a warm place, then a cold place, and fighting the robots. That's where I started feeling a bit lonely in that game. All right, we are down to our top two, our final two in the Metal Gear Solid series. At number two, we have
what a thrill, with darkness and silence through the night. What a thrill. I'm searching and I'll melt into you.
Metal Gear Solid 3 takes our number 2 spot. This one received a second place vote. It received a first, a second, a third, two firsts, a second, and 2/3. Metal Gear Solid 1 set Kojima's template for campy fun mixed in with much deeper philosophical and artistic ideas. Metal Gear Solid 2 dropped a nuclear bomb on the deeper, artsy side, leaving no existential crisis unturned. For the next game, Kojima reacted by swinging the other way and elevating the campy, fun spy thriller elements to create what Chris called his favorite Bond movie. Dripping with that spy thriller aesthetic from its evocative theme song to its cliched Russian baddie that we love to hate. He's possibly the most black and white villain of the series. Chris also points out how the boss is the gray area in the middle, single-handedly providing an emotional hook for the player to either find answers or get some kind of retribution. Well said, Chris. Although a tad long, I personally find this game to be the most consistent, which of course is a lot easier to do when you're using the well-established tropes like Kojima does in 1 and 3, as opposed to the experimentation of 2 and 4. The memorable bosses in 3, I think, almost rival those in 1. Their numerous set pieces and quieter moments are paced almost perfectly. The stealth has been evolved and expanded, allowing for replayability so you can experiment with new techniques or perfect your speed and accuracy. If I only had one Metal Gear Solid to play, it would be this one. But if I only had one Metal Gear Solid to show somebody, it'd be the next game. 3 is so fun. It feels like a little more pandering slightly of, okay, I faked you out in 2. I'm going to give you that hero in 3. And I'm still going to make a few comments on the world, but nothing too weird. And it does drag on a little bit at the end, but I think like most Metal Gear Solid games, it makes up for it at the ending. I had the most, other than, I think 5, I had the most fun the whole way through, like probably the most amount of fun. 3 probably left the best taste in my mouth. But I think you can't really compete for number 1 of the most important Metal Gear Solid game and probably one of the most important games of all time with our next one. At number 1, of course, is this game.
Raiden, turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
What's wrong with you?
Don't worry. It's a game. It's a game just like usual.
You'll ruin your eyes playing so close to the TV.
What are you talking about?
Raiden, something happened to me last Thursday when I was driving home. I had a couple of miles to go. I looked up and saw a glowing orange object in the sky to the east. It was moving very irregularly. Suddenly, there was intense light all around me, and when I came to, I was home. What do you think happened to me?
Huh?
Fine. Forget it. I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw Space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey Rock. I need scissors. 61.
He needs scissors. Metal Gear Solid 2. In Metal Gear Solid 1, Kojima used every tool he had. Memory cards, rumble controllers, the back of the case for looking up radio frequencies. And with Metal Gear Solid 2, he actually used the player as a game mechanic and storytelling. Using the immense expectations of people wanting a feel-good action sequel with everyone's favorite hero, the first quarter of the game plays right into that. It plays the part of a Metal Gear Solid sequel. The first switch-up sets a tone that nothing may be as it seems. The story keeps you on your toes as you negotiate a new base, perfectly laid out with multiple routes, so the backtracking this time feels strategic and not a chore. The story twists and turns, and only lost me at one triple cross right at the end, but brought me back when it goes further than any game before, or probably after, has. It goes so far past the fourth wall, it goes into a black hole of video game relativity. It's most likely Kojima's masterpiece, presenting his extreme ideas in a most cohesive way. Chris says, it really develops both the gameplay and mechanics, and the interior, wall-hugging, keycard-using level design. The mechanics feel perfected for this camera perspective. Personally, I feel like this the control is so intuitive, it makes you really feel like a master of ledges and space. The guards are using a radio to punish your sloppy work, keeping the immersion and challenge alive, so you never end up with a closet stuffed with unconscious guards. Overall, I think it's pound for pound the best Metal Gear Solid when it comes to Kojima's artistic vision, tight gameplay, well-paced story, and overall fun. It's the Final Fantasy X of Metal Gear Solid. The game still looks great. It still controls great. And he had balls. I'll admit that when I first bought this for my original Xbox, and Raiden came onto the screen, and it started giving me the tutorial again, I was so annoyed I stopped playing. And I didn't pick it up until a couple years ago. And I'm kind of glad I did, because I could fully appreciate it. I would say that the bosses were not as memorable as 3 and 1, but they were trying to do something new. I never really liked fighting Vamp too much, or Fortune. 3 and 1, they had more personality, but that's the style of it, right? It was that more personality, more campy, more James Bondy. And yeah, and they're going for a totally different angle, so I can see why Leonard and other people would enjoy the bosses. It's a totally different style. 1 and 3 played it safe, were warm and fuzzy. 2 and 4 were the artsy, indie, experimental, but with a gigantic budget. I really love the environments of 2. The hexagon of the shell base really made it easy to... You knew that if you went in one direction, you'd always end up where you need to go. The guards were way more... The AI in the guards was fantastic. Never felt like they were idiot guards you could just beat the hell out of and trick easily. And it just constantly kept you guessing. It took you on a nice journey, and then even had nice chilled out moments like Twilight sniping. So I definitely feel similar to Final Fantasy. I think Final Fantasy X is like Metal Gear Solid 2. It's the one that is the tightest, best game overall. But personally, if I could only pick one to play, I would have picked Metal Gear Solid 3. And probably 1. And then 2. You still have all the guards' voice lines memorized. So if you're watching the YouTube version, it's going to end now. Thanks for watching. Let us know your rankings so we can tell you you're wrong. If you're watching the live stream, we're going to continue on talking about Metal Gear Solid. Bye.